I'm in my T-Mobile colors today, here with Lloyd Levine. So happy you flew in from California here to the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust.
Thank you. And then I've got my T-Mobile lining on my T-Mobile jacket.
That's right, we're all T-Mobile-fied. Because we're going to talk about you today and the significance of this location and coming here and having spoken at one of our city and state events and what it means, as we also explore the role of technology and government working together.
This is a very impactful place to me. As you know, earlier last year, I was here to give a speech. And from the podium, I could see the Statue of Liberty and I could see Ellis Island. And it was really impactful to me because my family came through Ellis Island. My dad grew up in Brooklyn. My great-grandparents came here from Eastern Europe or Western Russia to make a better life for their family. And here I was speaking to a lot of the political and business leaders in the city and state of New York 140 years later. And so to see Ellis Island in front of the dais, it was incredibly impactful to me. And I was so honored to be at the museum to my family's heritage. It was just incredibly powerful.
So now we're going to go inside. Why, thank you, kind sir. So you were a member of the California State Legislature. What inspired you to get involved in public service?
Well, it's interesting. I've always been involved in public service. Public service ran in my family, and I grew up with that as my culture, and so it was just natural for me to get involved.
You have a book coming out this fall that talks about technology and government and how the two work together moving forward.
Well, ideally work together. The premise of the book is technology is advancing at an incredibly rapid pace, and government, on the other hand, really doesn't do a good job of adapting new technologies and integrating new technologies. So the question that underlies everything in the book is, how does government attract and retain the next generation of workers when government's so bad at integrating technologies? I believe in government. I don't think we should have a heavy hand, but government in the 21st century is essential to mediating between different liberties, different rights. How do we do that if people are ignoring the government?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do we do that if people are ignoring the government?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. So I don't have an answer. Everybody in government, it's a culture of fear of failure. Government is incredibly risk-averse. But if you look at the private sector technology companies, they prize failure. Nobody wants to fail, but they want to try, because you will never find something, you'll never succeed if you don't try.
How does a company like T-Mobile plant the seeds for the future of technology?
That's an excellent question as you kind of look at the symbolism of where we are. And T-Mobile kind of does that. And I know that may sound slightly corny, but we have a full division called 5G for Good, where we use our network and our solutions to really promote good. Everything from Project 10 Million, which provides free internet access to 10 million K-12 students across the country, because we recognize the internet is essential to success in 21st century America. And we've got other programs that help close the digital divide. We've got solutions that we're working on with governments across the country for people with developmental disabilities, veterans, people who use social services. So there's a whole aspect to the company that goes way beyond just our cell phones that everybody's familiar with.
What are some out-of-the-box ways that T-Mobile provides innovation to move technology forward when government does move notoriously slow?
We've invested heavily in a mobile network that provides an umbrella of connectivity. We cover about 260 million Americans with speeds that average 400 megabits per second. So the question to government is, well, what can you do with that? There's all sorts of different innovative solutions that we can bring to bear.
It's wild to think about because there's no precedence for technology working with government in that capacity.
You're right, there isn't. If I had a magic wand, I would change two things.
Okay.
I would change the procurement process. I would change the way people perceive government's ability to fail. I want to see my government try to achieve new things. I don't want my government so afraid that they don't push those boundaries and they don't attempt to use technology, because then you have a government that becomes irrelevant.
Any way I can be helpful championing this message, I'm down.
Okay,
Thanks,
I appreciate
Lloyd.
it. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Political Personalities with Skye.